Coming up on episode 302 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the updated BlueCruise, Chevy Colorado, the Lamborghini Huracan, Toyota Sequoia, Lincoln Corsair plug-in hybrid, the new Volvo EX30, new SUVs from Lexus, the GX and TX, going for a robotaxi ride in Austin, the death of CCS, and it'll cost you more for your Tesla insurance if you actually use Autopilot. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 302 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abuel-Salmon from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Nicole Wakeland. We're going to say the Road Reflected podcast. That's my own little project.
Ooh.
Yeah, I fancy.
I am Roberto Baldwin from, let's say Engadget. I don't remember what I said last week, but I'm just going to say Engadget this week because I'm doing a lot of work for Engadget in the next 2 weeks.
That counts.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, Nicole, let's start with you. You had a couple of SUVs.
I had a couple of SUVs. So the first thing I had was actually in no particular order, a Lincoln Corsair plug-in hybrid, which I like PHEVs. I think they're fun. I'm all for the PHEVs.
Well, you spent your money on one, so.
I did, right? Exactly. Proof, yeah. So I like the Corsair. The thing is, if you want the plug-in hybrid of the Corsair, I want to say there's 3 trims. You can only get it in the Grand Touring, otherwise you're getting the gas engine. So you have to go with the most expensive version of the Corsair that you can get, the fancy pantsist one, and it's $53,885. It's not cheap eats. Yeah, so it's pretty pricey.
That's like the Lincoln problem, I think.
Right?
Everything's a little bit more, everything feels like it costs a little bit more than it should.
It costs yeah, and it was like $53,885. And the funny thing, so this last week I had the entire family in town, both of my daughters and one daughter's boyfriend. So 3 of them were trying to fit into the back. No, thank you. It was like, they were going to try it. And I actually had another sedan this week. And like, can we try the sedan instead? I'm like, okay, we get in the sedan. Like, yeah, this is living. So it is, and it's like 6'3" college guy and 2 girls. They were like, no, this is not going to cut it to go get ice cream at Hayward's today. Can we take the other car, Mom? So it's really a 2-person in back. It is not 3 people, despite what I would
say that's pretty consistent, for all the smaller crossovers.
Right.
Yeah. They're like, hey, there's another seatbelt, but it's really a trick.
Right? It's like, and a very rare occasion do you actually think you can fit 3 people back there. But it was like the left to right, the shoulder squish that was happening. But even in terms of like having enough room for their knees, like my husband's 6'3", the boyfriend there is 6'3". They could not sit, like it was like, no, I cannot sit behind each other. So it's not huge. But you know what? You're buying a crossover. You're not getting this to shove a family of 5 into all the time, right? This was an exception for me to like a test case, I guess.
Quick question.
Yeah.
When, as far as the legroom, obviously the width, there's nothing you can do about.
Right.
But the Corsair and the Escape, they both have a sliding back seat. So you can move it like 8 inches forward or back. So you can either bias it towards more cargo space or more legroom. Did you try moving the back seat back?
Yeah,
at least in terms of legroom?
I believe we had it back as far as we could get it. Okay. I didn't like shove it again after they got in, but I'm like, it was going to take more than 8 inches of space. Yeah. Poor Rez's kneecaps are like at his chest. He's like, nope, not going to happen. So, I mean, that makes it easier for like what my shortest daughter's like 5'5". She had enough room, but like she had enough. You know what I mean? She didn't have extra to spare. She had just enough room. And that was sitting behind me, and I'm 5'6". So it is not a tall person's car. I mean, it's not super.
We can't travel. We're not allowed to travel in packs anyway, tall people.
Right. You can't.
Because if we all fall down at once, we're going to cause a scene.
It's going to cause a scene.
You want to keep you guys isolated.
Right. Yeah. Only 1 6-foot+ person per car at a time. That's the maximum limit. There's signs and stuff. We tried to ignore them. It was a bad call. So I mean, this is definitely 2 people in the back, I feel like the Corsair is for someone who really doesn't have a family, like you're just having a couple of friends that you're bringing along sometimes, and you want to be able to have that versatility for cargo. Like that's a large part of why you get a crossover. It's easier to have a hatchback than it is to have a trunk. You can fit more stuff in there. You can flip the seats down, and then you actually have genuine room to put cargo in, whatever it is, suitcases, what have you. So I feel like that's exactly what this does. I mean, if that's what you're looking for, it's a great idea. This has... I just lost my train of thought. 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, 266 horsepower. So it's fine. It's good. Has 28 miles of range. The only thing that I noticed that I thought was kind of, and it wasn't just me, I rode with other people and they thought the same thing. When it makes the switch from gas to electric, it is loud. Like I know whenever that switch happens in a PHEV, there's a moment of like, oh, the engine seems loud, because you've been driving in silence. And there's a second where it seems kind of loud. This one was loud enough that someone's like, what's that noise? Like it was enough that it like was jarring. And I was like, I think the engine just kicked on because we've used up our battery. Like, really? That's what that is? I'm like, that's what that is. So and I realized I'm like, it was it's sort of louder than you would expect the engine sound for a vehicle that's supposed to be a luxury car. Because I feel like a large part of a luxury car is, unless you're driving some super performance thing, you don't want to hear the engine. You want it to be.
Yeah, you want to muffle that.
You want to muffle that. And I feel like in this one, it's like, oh, whoa, okay, the engine's on now. So it wasn't rough in terms of like, you don't feel it. It's not like one of those when it switches, the car like moves, like shakes. But the sound is really dramatically different from between electric and gas. So that was like sort of my, not too keen on that. But in terms of the luxury part, there's leather everywhere. There's heated front seats. There's ambient lighting. There's this really cool thing like right on the center console where it displays a little light that looks like the Lincoln logo. So if you put your hands under it, it puts a little Lincoln logo on your hand for a second. Yeah,
fancy.
That's completely useless, but it was really cool. And they did have something. Okay, I tried this out. So we had the wildfires up in Canada. And I think you got some of this in Detroit even.
We did. Yeah, our air quality was pretty bad for a few days. Not as bad as the East Coast, but it was...
Yeah, I think we weren't as bad as Detroit because we're sort of on the way the swath came down. We're on the edges of it, not in the thick of it, sort of. So... But one of the things, Lincoln actually reached out and said, hey, we realize that you have our car and you're in the Northeast and there's terrible smoke. They have an auto air refresh. It's an available feature. It's not a standard thing. And it has like an air filtration system that always can like goes in the car and helps monitor the cabin air quality. But you can look at it and it tells you the particulate matter in your car. Like there's a little screen and it's like yellow, green, orange, all the way to like dark burgundy. And apparently you're just inhaling directly from a fire. So you have this range and it shows you the particulate matter. And I played with it when the air is fine, like it is now. The fires, I think, are pretty much over with, or at least we're not getting an impact from them here in the Northeast. And it was like 0-1, 0-1. So it's in green and it's all happy. I tried it when the smoke had sort of wasn't at its peak here, and it was like at the top end of the yellow. So you can see, and it can monitor that. So it knows like my cabin air quality is terrible. So it works to recirculate that and take as much of the particulate matter out of the air as possible to bring it back down again. I thought that was kind of neat. And I did some Google foo, and I saw some people who put up pictures of this who were more in the thick of it. And it was all the way into like fully into the orange scary part in the middle of the range. That's how bad it was. But it's kind of neat because it's not something you really think about. And it's not like we have wildfires all the time. But if you live in a city, let's presume you just live in a city.
Let's say you live where Robbie lives.
Let's see your Robbie. And every day is full of particulate matter. Yeah.
I live in Wildfire Central.
Exactly. So for me, it was an odd thing. But for those who live in a city or someplace where wildfires are an issue, it can actually help keep the air quality in your car a little better. So, of course, you're going to get out of your car and deal with whatever you deal with. But it's nice to know that you have that. I thought that was kind of neat.
Cool.
So if you live somewhere where there's wildfires, buy a Lincoln Corsair.
Buy a Lincoln Corsair because you can use I just have to read the description because the description is so markety. It's funny. Available Auto Air Refresh is a holistic air filtration and active air monitoring system. It's holistic.
Oh, man.
Makes it sound very fancy.
Every time I hear the word holistic, my brain just shuts off and I just start thinking about other things.
But it was cool. It has
holistic. I'm all, what?
That's why I said that to you after I told you what it did, Robbie. I didn't want you to fall asleep ahead of time. So that was kind of a neat. And I think the kind of fun thing about that is one of the things you get when you start going to luxury cars. You get these weird little quirky features like, why do I have that? Oh, hey, it came in handy. So that's kind of a neat thing. So I like driving it. Like I said, really not backseat. It's like usable for two for short drives. It's not really for a person car all the time. It's an occasional two people in the back, but it's nice to drive. It feels luxurious. It's super comfortable. Has all the sort of amenities that you want. Leather wrapped steering wheel, all that kind of good stuff. So it feels every bit like a luxury car, and it has like this huge. It's got like a 13.2 inch infotainment screen and a 12.3 inch instrument cluster. So you have that nice long span of digital across the dashboard, which I feel like makes every car feel and look like, okay, you're updated and you're of the moment, not holding on to an 8-inch screen just like smashed on top there from 5 years ago.
It's just crammed in there.
Just
There's
like, we're gonna
cracks.
stick
There's
this on the
cracks
dash.
in the dash
Kablamo.
from where you the guy just riveted it in.
There's just screws on the back. They pop through the screen a little bit. Yeah.
Hey, the Maverick in my driveway right now has an 8-inch screen, and it's fine. There's no
I'm
cracks.
fine with an 8-inch screen.
I like the big screens. I think they make it feel like a luxury thing.
Well,
and make it feel cool.
That's why the new Nautilus is going to this 49-inch, coast to coast display.
It's just one giant screen. There's no dashboard. It's just a screen.
Actually two, but yeah.
mega glass.
Mega glass.
To what you were saying about, it's really being a vehicle for two, the automakers, Ford, Lincoln, others, have talked about, in this size class, these are the vehicles that are, they're really targeting more both empty nesters on the one end of the age spectrum and like millennials, Gen Z, or, very young families at the other end of the spectrum. And then, in between, for those that actually do need more space, that's why they offer bigger models like the Nautilus and the Aviator. So, the automakers are well aware of, what
who's buying.
Yeah.
Right.
And who the expected audience is for these types of vehicles.
Yeah, this isn't. I think the thing is, like, people think crossover, and like once upon a time, crossover really was just like a slightly smaller SUV. Now crossovers can get small. They really are just like
they're just raised hatchbacks.
Think of them as raised hatchbacks. Exactly. Like think of them. Okay, the versatility of a sedan in terms of people, it's the cargo part that gets different. The people part doesn't necessarily get different in those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll be talking more about another one of those a little bit later on in the show that just was unveiled this week.
Yes.
All right. So what else did you drive?
So I was also driving the Toyota Sequoia, which I cannot spell that word. I swear to God, when I wrote this story.
Sequoia? You have to be from California in order to spell it.
I spelled Sequoia different every single time. Like, it wasn't like I misspelled it consistently the same way. I came up with new and exciting spellings for Sequoia as I went through the story. I'm like, none of this is right. Autocorrect, I need help. So I had the Toyota Sequoia when I was out in Milwaukee for a graduation. So we had a bunch of families. So I'd asked for something that could seat a bunch of people. And they gave me a Sequoia, which was fine. I had the TRD Pro trims. It's kind of like sort of rugged. I was not off-roading.
But I was factor.
Yeah. So that's the sound of off-roading. But it was Milwaukee, so it wasn't like I was off-roading anywhere. I like driving.
But they do have potholes.
They have potholes that will swallow your car whole.
So were you running into them on purpose?
Just on purpose, kablam! Yeah. So now this poor car has no
TRD Pro was
suspension.
appropriate then.
Yes. And it was great. The only thing that driving something that's just, the Sequoia is not small, and it's big wheels and big everything and high, and so like we're driving downtown. I'm like thinking, oh, this is not the right car to have in downtown Milwaukee. It was fine, slightly outside the city where everyone was, but right downtown, I thought, oh, this is not.
That's what the Corsair's for.
That's what you need your Corsair.
You know what you need? You need a minivan.
You need a smaller one. So it was still great, though. I mean, it has tons of room. The thing that's weird about it, have you guys driven the Sequoia? Have either of you? Okay.
Yeah. No, I had one about a month or two ago.
Okay. Did you play around with the cargo situation in the back of the Sequoia?
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't understand. So there's not a lot of room behind the third row. But then when you fold the third row down, there's these little handles that when you kind of slide it forward further. So you can push the seats. It feels like maybe 6 inches, maybe 8 inches. You can slide them all forward. When they're folded down, they'll slide forward. So you get a little bit more room. And then it has this little cargo floor thing that's, I'm going to say maybe it runs the width of the vehicle, but it's only maybe 1.5 feet. 2 feet maybe. And it sits sort of on the bottom. And when you want it just sitting there, there's a tiny little space underneath where you can put stuff. But then you can take that little thing out and you slide it into little notches. And now it's in the middle. So it's level with like where that third row seat is folded. It has a little flap that comes down. And now you have a flat load surface from your all the way across to your but it's now up. Like it's not all the way down. So it's like raised up from the cargo floor. And then there's a third position, you can put it even higher. And I honest to God couldn't figure out why you would do that unless maybe you had the third row seats up
So you have the third row seats up, and then you can have it hot, like a little shelf behind the third row seat.
Right.
Yeah.
So which
So you can put like candy and chips back there while you're sitting there, and just hold on, let me get my Funyuns.
Because I got the first level and I got the second level. I put it in the third level. I'm like, why? I don't get the third level.
You can put things underneath it, right?
You can tell. So maybe it was
that's
just
so
to be
people
able
can't
to
see.
hide stuff. I guess it was weird.
I think Ford has something like this on the Expedition as well, and other OEMs are doing it now.
Yeah.
And it is exactly that. So you can, if you've got shorter stuff, and it gives you an opportunity to stack things. So you have more flexibility in how you put things in the back. So your groceries, you could have
put the bread on the shelf.
Levels.
Yeah, you could have.
I mean, I guess to a point,
the more
it was
sensitive stuff up top.
It was that top level that I thought was weird. But what was kind of cool though is when you have it all the way on the bottom, or it doesn't matter where you put it, but you still have when it's in its lowest little spot, you have maybe like 6 inches of space under it. And between the actual floor of the car, and there's these little pieces that snap in, that go the length that can partition it off, like left to right. There's these 3 little plastic things, and you can take them out, so it's like one long space, or you could snick them in different spots. So you could have a wide spot, a narrow spot. You could put your.
So you display your tchotchkes in the back.
I guess. It's really low. You couldn't see it. It's way in the bottom. So and you can take them out entirely if you just want it to be one spot, or you can just sort of schnick them in like little different spots. So
could you put it like a 6-pack of what is it, bottled beer in one of those spots so it doesn't slide around?
You could put anything. It would keep your eggs from smacking into the cars.
Yeah, there you go. I'm trying to think of breaking stuff that'll break.
Yeah, you could
fragile
put stuff,
things. That's what they're
called. You could put stuff in there and break it up. So I'd actually like that. I thought that was kind of neat the way that divided up and that you could mess around with that. But overall, it was weird. It was it's a very short space behind the third row, but then they made it really fancy. I'm like, well, why don't you just make a little more space behind the third row, to begin with? You went all this work to do this cool cargo system. So I thought it was both cool and confusing, the cargo situation.
Cool and confusing.
Cool and confusing is how I would describe the cargo. Yeah. But it's only a hybrid. It's a 3.5 liter V6 hybrid, 437 horsepower. So it's going to move. I mean, it's a big vehicle, but it moves. It's their iForce Max hybrid, which is how do they describe it? I guess it's like the hybrid that also delivers you performance. It's not just hybridy. It's like a balance between hybrid fuel efficiency and full out performance. It kind of
it's really more biased towards performance than efficiency.
So it's a little bit more fun to drive. Although hybrids aren't what they were years ago. Hybrids are not bad to drive, but it makes it a little bit more fun to drive. It feel like I was driving the TRD trim has cool little elements to make it look fancy off-road inside, that stitching and blah blah blah, but it's basically it's a pretty upscale vehicle when you get to the TRD trim. They also have a capstone, which is the fancy new trim they introduced with the Tundra. That's like their most premium of the premium Toyotas get the capstone label. So it feels like a premium vehicle. It feels that way. So I like the Sequoia. I just feel like the cargo situation was it. If you're going to be using it for people, it's really roomy for people. That's great. But if you're using it for that, if you want to put third row cargo behind the third row, I feel like it's wonky. There's just not enough back there, and it's kind of a funkety floor system.
Yeah, I was the other night when we were in Texas. I was talking to someone from Toyota off the record, and he did acknowledge that the Sequoia during the development, when they were creating the new Tundra, and this is based on the Tundra, the Sequoia program was killed and revived multiple times because they weren't sure if they wanted to build another Sequoia because the sales, kind of were hard to justify doing the Sequoia. I'm just looking at the sales figures. In 2021, they only sold 8,000 of them, and last year was only 5,300 because last year was the switchover.
Yeah.
But 8,000 the year before. So I think that's one of the reasons why they decided, okay, we're only going to do the one powertrain option, and also the previous gen Sequoia, unlike the Tundra, did have an independent rear suspension, which made for more room in the back because you could have a lower floor back there. So it makes more comfortable seating in the third row. The new Sequoia went back to the solid axle that's on the on the Tundra. So again, there's some compromises. They did some compromises
Womp, womp.
to try to keep the development cost, the bill of materials cost down somewhat, to help justify building it at all.
I guess that's kind of what it feels like. I mean, driving it, there are parts of it that are really nice. Some of the way the materials and things are nice inside of it. It looks good. There's like a 14-inch infotainment touchscreen on the one I have. They got, things like their premium auto and Qi wireless charging. They have all this really cool stuff that's available, but at the same time, you kind of look at the versatility of it. And like an SUV that size, this is one where you're using this for people. You're using this for cargo. And it feels like it wasn't, it feels a little bit like halfway. Like it just is not.
Yeah, when you compare it, especially to the GM big SUVs, the Tahoes and Suburbans and Yukons and Escalades, and even to the Expedition Navigator, it's not quite there. And like especially like if you compare it against a Jeep Wagoneer.
Oh yeah,
it's not quite in the same ballpark. So I think this is not going to be a huge boost in not likely to be a huge boost in sales to Toyota's bottom line.
Yeah, I agree.
So how much was your Sequoia?
Oh, I didn't have a Monroney on my Sequoia, so
Mystery Sequoia.
It's a mystery Sequoia. Shoot, and I didn't wait. I thought I had the pricing in front of me, and now I can't find it. Hold on.
Free.
Hold on.
Everyone gets a free Sequoia. If you can spell it on the first try, you get it. They just give it to you.
I don't even know what the base pricing is. I don't have it. I'm terrible.
The Sequoia starts at $60,000 for the SR5, and you had a TRD Pro.
I had the TRD Pro, so it's going to be a chunk more than that.
It starts at $77,565.
See? That's
so
too
almost
much.
$70,000. When you add in your delivery charge and everything, you're looking close to $80,000.
See, would you pay 80? You drove it, Sam. Would you pay $80,000 for that car?
No,
I don't think so. No.
Yeah. I literally,
that's a nice
if I was going to spend $80,000 on a full size SUV, the Sequoia would not be my first choice.
yeah. And as I feel like I'm kind of slamming it, like it was fine for what it was, and you can go off road and you can put people in it, and it's durable and looks good and all that. But I'm just like, it's not all there. Like
does it have independent rear suspension? So every person in the third row is like, oh god.
Oh yeah, all those potholes, the potholes you're mentioning that could swallow a car. Oh my gosh, you felt them, man. You felt those potholes.
And as a hybrid, it doesn't get particularly good fuel efficiency. I think I got like 17 miles per gallon with it.
Yeah, it says the EPA combined is 22 miles per gallon.
Yeah, but I've never gotten close to the EPA numbers for either the Sequoia or the Tundra.
And 22
hybrid.
is not great.
Yeah, and the Wagoneer, for example, in that same price range, even though the Wagoneer doesn't get great fuel economy, I think I would take the Wagoneer, with especially the new one with the Huracan inline six. It gets comparable fuel economy to this, and it's not even a hybrid.
Right.
And it's a much nicer place to spend time. And my guess is it will probably do better off road even than the Sequoia.
Yeah, and and that vehicle too. It's the cargo versatility is better in it, and it is a way more smooth, refined ride. I mean, it's still a Jeep, but it's a great big luxury Jeep. So it feels like it. This one, for that price, it just the competition is really strong. I can see why they're only selling 5,000 of these.
They're just trying to pick up the people who already have Sequoias, and they're Toyota families. The
I feel like it's Toyota loyalists. Yeah. Well, and every brand has that, right? If you love your Toyota, and there's nothing wrong with Toyotas.
There's a lot of people who will buy nothing but a Toyota, and for good reason.
Because they go forever.
They're durable. They're reliable.
You get rid of the Toyota because you've just grown tired of it. It will never give up on you. It will
you gave it to your child or another family member.
You're like, it's time to hand it on, or I need to go from a sedan up to an SUV or whatever. It's not like, oh, my car died. It's like, I have decided I'm done with it. I will hand you on to the next
more or less
individual.
space.
Yeah, it's not because the car ever fails on you. It's just your life circumstances have changed and it no longer works for you.
Yep. All right, Robbie.
I drove two cars this week. I'm going to talk about the very exciting
They're both
version.
really boring, right?
Yes, this is the exciting one. The Chevy Colorado Trail Boss. It's it's an all-wheel drive crew cab, the 2023. It's a truck, all right. It's a truck. So I got into the car the other day, and I'm adjusting, the seats and the mirrors and the side mirrors and the steering wheel, and then I realized that this $41,000 vehicle, it started with the base price of $37,000. It doesn't have a telescoping steering wheel.
That's an odd
Really?
And I'm just fighting with it. I'm like yanking on it. I'm just doing anything. I'm like, is it stock? I'm looking for another, like, is there another level? Is there another lever? Is there like a thing that I'm not? Nope. And so when I bust out the owner's manual, I see nothing about the owner's manual. I'm just like, okay then. So I don't have, so I'm not straight arming it. I have to move my seat a little bit forward. So now my knees are bent more so than I would like, because I have long arms and long legs, and
you're gangly.
Yeah. So yeah. So all right. So okay. So you go past that, driving it around. It's fine. It's the problem is that it exists in the world with the Toyota Tacoma. That's its issue, is that it exists in the world where, if I was driving this and then I got into Tacoma, I'm like, well, why would I even drive this? Why would I buy this? Why would I buy the Colorado over the Toyota Tacoma? And that's,
did you come up with an answer? Is there a reason to buy it?
Not really. I mean, well, okay, maybe. So it does have it has Android Automotive, so it does have Google Maps in it. Okay. And you can say, hey, Google, take me to here, take me to there, do this, do that. So that's nice. So I think that's, I think. And I know GM's like, oh, we're getting rid of CarPlay. We've already had that whole discussion.
Right.
And part of that is because of Android Automotive, and they want to be able to say this is better than using CarPlay. And it's not yet, especially not for a lot of people. But it's Android Automotive does make it a much better system. So that's nice. And I could drive over things, so you always got that going for you. It gets about 19 miles per gallon combined, 21 highway, 17 city. So it's about what you would expect from a raised mid-sized pickup truck. So it's not, it's not horrible, but it's not great. It's got a 2.7 liter turbo, and when you're driving, you can hear the turbo spinning up. So that's kind of cool.
That's fun.
You can hear that noise. That's the turbo noise.
I got that. That's the sound of a turbo. In case anyone's never driven one, that's exactly
that's what it sounds like.
Exactly like that.
It just sounds like someone's underneath the hood, just like sucking air through their teeth. Yeah, no, it's fine. That's my that's my thing. Is like, it's just hard to justify that price tag for the Trail Boss.
How much is it again?
So the standard pricing for the Trail Boss version that I drove is $37,000.
That's a lot.
Mine has the one I was driving was $41,000, and it comes with a convenience package with the easy lift tailgate, and like there's a tailgate storage area where you put the tailgate down and you turn these two little like levers and it opens up, and there's like a little spot where you can put sandwiches or saws or whatever inside the tailgate, and then you close and you open. So so you got that, and you get the rear window sliding and cruise control, and it's got most of the things you expect from a modern vehicle, except for a telescoping steering wheel. And I'm like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that decision. Like,
that feels like a weird place to drive. Okay, is
it's
that
like we're just
that expensive a component to do?
Yeah.
Is that significantly super pricey? Engineering man, Sam, is that really pricey?
It does add complexity. Yeah, it adds cost to it. Although, on a modern vehicle, something that's launching in 2023, that price point, it seems kind of inexcusable not to have a telescoping steering wheel.
Like if it was like a $20,000 truck, if it was like Chevy's like Ford Maverick, and I got into
the Ford Maverick has a telescoping steering wheel.
I know. I would give it a little bit of I'd be like,
and you know what else the Maverick comes standard with now for 2023 that it didn't have when it originally came out?
What?
Cruise control, which does not come standard on the Colorado.
It's such a weird. There's so many weird decisions made with this vehicle. It's just like GM is nickel and diming you with this truck, and then you're just like, why would I buy this over? I would get a Maverick before I would get this.
Yeah.
and the Maverick's smaller.
Andre at TFL Trucks, he bought a Colorado, bought one of the first ones like a month or two ago. And, they have a video that he put up, him and Roman did when they first got it. And he mentioned both of these things, the non-telescoping steering wheel and the lack of cruise control as standard.
Oh, really?
He bought a base level Colorado.
This is just his personal car that he bought?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was a little miffed because he didn't realize it didn't come standard with cruise control.
Oh, so what made him? Did he say why Colorado? What made him buy that in the first place?
I mean, the TFL guys, they buy new vehicles.
They buy a lot of vehicles.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they buy them and then sell, and do all kinds of testing with them for several months and then usually sell them.
So
off
this is
after
one of the
6
ones
months
they're
to a
just going to
year.
use. Okay, I wasn't sure if
And
this
this is one that he bought for himself as as a personal vehicle, but they're also
Got it.
shooting videos with it. And
He's probably going to sell it.
Yeah. He was kind of miffed that it didn't have cruise control
Fair.
or the telescoping wheel.
Yeah, it feels. I don't want to say it doesn't have.
Well, this is one of the weird things that GM has done for a long time. They make some very strange product decisions that they do a lot of stuff really well, and then they will decide to nickel and dime on something like the steering column or the cruise control. And one of my big complaints over the years has been some of their decision, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, around their driver assist features, where other manufacturers are making things like radar adaptive cruise control, like Toyota, for example. It's pretty much standard on all trim levels on almost all their models. Even on Cadillacs, they didn't come standard with that. So yeah, it's kind of the way GM has been for a while now.
Yeah, it's a very weird decision because I feel like you could do this in the 90s or early 2000s where people just weren't researching the hell out of their vehicles before, where they could find out the minutia of everything that's going on in their vehicle. Now, someone can just get on a podcast, or they can go to TFL, or they just look on Twitter, or they can find out that this thing doesn't have, these things. And you're like, well, why would I buy this over the Ranger, or why would I buy this over the Tacoma? And so it's a very, driving it around, again, it's fine. It does all the things you're supposed to do. I didn't have a chance to take it off-road, unfortunately, which is always sort of a bummer whenever I get these off-road versions of the vehicles, because it's a 2-hour drive to the off-road place, and then I got to drive around and 2 hours back. And I just don't have time. Unless it's like a hive, unless I'm doing a video, I'm not going to drive for 5 hours just so I can say, hey, I took it in the dirt.
5 hours there and back, 5 minutes in the dirt. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's not a, yeah. So yeah, that's my big takeaway for the Colorado. It is, if you're a huge Chevy fan, if you have a Colorado and you love it and you love the way it drives, you like the idea of having a turbo in your little truck and that you can hear, and you don't care all that much about telescoping steering wheel. Yay! This is the truck for you. I was really just sitting in the car for like the first 10 minutes. They dropped it off. I had to do a bunch of stuff. I don't even know why I was in the car. I was going out to like move it or go somewhere, just drive it. And I'm like, what's going on?
It's not working.
I'm really like yanking on the steering wheel, trying to pull it out. And I'm like, is it stuck? Is it looking? I'm like, I don't think this thing has one. Then I was afraid I was going to break it. I'm like, oh, what if it's stuck and I break it? That's going to be a bad
That's always
day.
the fear. You're like, this should move. Wait, am I just going to break something off of the car, or should this move? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's our title, Yanking the Steering Wheel.
Yanking the steering wheel. So that's a Chevy. That's a Chevy Colorado. Yeah, I use it to carry stuff. I went and bought 12 bags of mulch.
You did get mulch?
We went and bought mulch with it, and then I used it to return 2 e-bikes to a manufacturer.
Okay.
To their retail store. So yeah, you can throw things in it. It's got I believe 4 hooks in the back, or 4 ringlets you can hook things onto. So that's great. Yeah, it's got all the truck things you want to do with it, except for have a steering wheel closer to you.
Except for a steering wheel you can adjust.
The second vehicle I drove was far less exciting. It was the Lamborghini.
Did it have an
Huracan.
adjustable steering column?
It did have an adjustable steering. It better have an adjustable steering
better.
column. For the price of this thing, it was the Lamborghini Huracan Tecnica. It is. It's sort of, it's kind of Lamborghini's. Well, it's not sort of. It's the last hurrah of their V10, their big 10-cylinder mega engine from hell.
Does the Serato have the V10 or is it a V8?
I don't know. I think it has the V8. I was looking up. I don't think they don't have it with the little. I was looking at the tables, of all the cars with who has what, and I didn't see the Serato one. So I've driven, I think, every version of the Huracan except for the Serato at this point. So I know, fancy, huh? So
fancy.
This is the Tecnica. It is a not quite the STO. It's essentially how they're putting it. The STO is like just track. It's a track car, the Huracan STO. This is like, it's track, but also you can drive it on the road. But you get in it and there's no carpets. It's just like, there's no like handles on the doors. It's to open the door. There's like just a little loop, a little cloth like canvas loop, and you just
keep the weight down as much as possible.
Yeah, you're getting the weight down as much as possible in this thing, and it is fantastic as well. It's big and it's loud and it's throaty and it's a Huracan, and it's a rear wheel drive. It's got let me look at my numbers. Boop. Oh, these are Newton meters. That's not going to help y'all at all.
Where do you think? Well, Newton meters.
Oh,
This is an American audience, Robbie.
I
Get the
wrote it.
right
Hold on.
numbers.
Where's my other note?
What are you
There it is.
thinking?
How many
Okay.
Newton meters?
I got it. So it's
Sam's
got,
about to do it in his head. He's going to calculate the difference. Is what was going to happen there.
Okay, so how many Newton meters is it?
Oh, I can. Oh, okay. So they gave me the number, but let me tell you the Newton meters in the C. 565 Newton meters. Are you gonna do it in your head?
It's about 400 foot-pounds of torque, roughly.
417. Good job. Yeah.
See, he does know it. Go
Look at
engineering,
that.
man. Woohoo!
Yeah. No, it's really fun to drive. It's only 3,000 pounds. Well, actually, they put 3,040.175 pounds. That's the
Could
dry.
it be a little bit more
That's dry
precise
weight without
instead of these willy-nilly estimates?
175 pounds. That's when you rip everything out of the vehicle.
Well, you know what that is. They weighed it in kilograms and then just did the conversion and just put it
just
copy and paste.
175.
Didn't even bother to
maybe we should
round it.
adjust this and not round it that way. Nah, give them the exact number. We're a precision company.
Wait. Okay. So what was that weight again?
3,040 and 0.175.
3,040.
That's dry, and that's dry weight. That's not with the bits in it and whatnot.
So yeah, that's exactly 1,379 kilograms.
See,
All right,
that's
so
what
it's
they did.
1,000, whatever Sam just said, kilograms.
1379.
1379. So Lamborghini says it's been developed for pilots driving fun and lifestyle perfection on both road and track. And you can drive this thing on the road.
Street legal, but
it is street legal. It is street legal. It is also, if you have a bumpy road, you're going to feel all those bumps. And you can't adjust like lumbar support or anything in this vehicle. If you're tall, and this is a problem I've had with all of the Huracan, well, really all the Lamborghinis, is that they're not necessarily made for tall people. And when I say they're not made for tall people. You can, if I get in a Huracan in any Lamborghini with a helmet, I have to like scooch down, and my head's like at an angle, and so I'm on a track and like the most convoluted. I need to be a contortionist in order to drive. So they're not made for tall people.
Well, if you were to get one of these, you would have to have probably a custom seat made and have it bolted directly to the floor with no brackets, and give you some recline so that you could actually fit in there, without scooching your head over.
And that's essentially what the seat is right now. There's nothing. It's just like a seat, and you have to have. It has the big turn. You have to turn it in order to like adjust forward, to adjust it, and then it has like a little lever, and then it has a little. You can go forward and back. That's it. It's like old timey seats where you can go forward and back. You can make a few little adjustments, and that's
That's it.
That's all you get. Which is great most of the time, but because the vehicle is built for someone who's shorter than me, it does not. It ended up hurting my back after a few hours, which is weird because most sports seats, I'm like, they're perfect. But most sports seats I sit in are for German cars, which are made for taller people, I believe. And so, so it's you need to be shorter than 6'3" if you want to drive this for like the entire day, because it's probably gonna that, and the fact that you're driving essentially a track car on the road and the roads are bumpy, it'll jingle your bones.
Jingle your bones.
Jingle your bones.
Not like a Christmas song. I feel like it's a there's some Christmas song on one of the little animated Christmas things. Jingle jangles. That's not like, I can't think of the song, but there is one, and it's like that. Jingle jangle. Anyway, sorry, it sounded
jingle your bones. It has rear wheel steering, and has torque vectoring, which is cool. It has the best brakes ever. Just amazing. Just
like carbon ceramic or
they did do. You could hear a little squeaking while you were driving, but not until the end of the day. But and it has they've increased the rear downforce on this vehicle by 35% while reducing drag 20%. That's
impressive, because usually those two kind of go in opposite directions.
Yeah.
Compared to the EVO, the Huracan EVO. So they've done a lot of crazy stuff with this vehicle to just make it better. And you can take it to track, you can drive it around. And they've done all these things, and it's really fun to drive. And but you're paying for all this, and the base price is $239,000.
That's a house.
That's a house. Yeah, that's a couple houses in Ohio.
It's more than we paid for this house.
Yeah. But then let's say, so the version they gave to me.
Oh gosh, how much was yours? So
$330,000.
Oh my Lord.
$330,000.
That is such rarefied air. The number of people who can't afford that.
It's like when you buy a supercar, you have to. I was talking to my neighbor about this, and I'm like, you have to be able to afford two supercars, two Lamborghinis or two Ferraris if you want to buy one. Because everything you want to do to it is, every time something needs to be fixed, anytime, it's going to cost you a pretty penny.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap car to have. Whenever I have one of these really nice cars at my house, it's always a little unnerving because, there's a car in front of my house, and I live in the Bay Area, so my house is expensive, but the car is like, almost the cost of your house. And people drive by and they slow down, and you're like, just keep going, buddy. Just keep going.
Just keep right on driving. Move along, please. Move along.
So, no, but it is fun to drive. I'm just going to tell you it gets 15 miles per gallon.
Really?
Yeah, which seems pretty good, to be honest.
You can say like 2.
All things considered, yeah, it's not bad.
All things considered, yeah, it gets 15 miles, 18 on the highway, 13 city. Yeah, 15 miles per gallon. That's if you're just driving like you're in the regular.
It's better than a Ram TRX.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, well, that's not so bad, I guess.
This is actually, in the grand scheme, quite good.
In the grand scheme of things, this is actually quite good. But there is a gas guzzler tax of $2,100 because it does get,
which makes it unaffordable once you add on that gas guzzler tax.
Yeah, that's what really pushes you over the edge.
That's your deal breaker, right?
I mean, the wheels, the 20-inch wheels that they added on, $10,000, $10,800 for the wheels. Yeah,
and they're not even carbon fiber wheels, are they?
They're the rims Loge. I don't think they're carbon fiber. And then the color, it's the matte color, the Grigio,
so
16,000.
Okay, I was going to say 15.
$16,500. The brake calipers in silver, $6,100. It's just you can just keep naming things. The black roof rear bonnet, $15,000. Just all these little itty bitty things. You're like, oh, that's more than my whole car. Oh, the sports seats that don't quite fit me, $7,600.
They don't quite fit me.
Yeah. It does support CarPlay. I got in and like, boop. It was, by the way, easiest stuff for CarPlay I've ever had in a car. I got it and it just started like doing CarPlay.
That is the one big advantage of companies like Lamborghini being owned by a conglomerate like the Volkswagen Group.
Yeah.
You don't have to settle for, this nonsense, little trivial stuff, because they can just pick that off the parts bin shelf, from the BMW Group.
Like the Urus is essentially the infotainment system in the Urus is just a re-skinned version of Audi's MMI, which is you're like, oh, okay, that's great. Yeah, it was like the easiest like setup of CarPlay ever. But the volume control, there's nowhere to put anything. Like you can put a phone and then like another phone, and that's it.
Nothing else. That's all.
Nothing else.
And so, nowhere to put your crumble cookies.
There's no cup holder because I was like,
there's no crumble. I'm out. If there's no crumble spot, I had 89,000 ready to go, but forget it. I'll buy something else.
There's a little shelf behind the driver and the passenger, but on the passenger side, there's a fire extinguisher, so you can't put stuff there. But there is a a frunk because rear engine or mid engine rear mounted engine. There we go. Not rear, not mid rear. I just someone's gonna yell.
Because you can also have a front mid, where the engine's behind the front axle but in front of you.
Yeah, like I can't say it, the car that I'm not allowed to talk about. But you open it up and there was a bag in there with a car cover, and then in addition to that, I could put my backpack on top of that and it'd be fine. Now, if I took the car cover out and my backpack, I could probably get a carry-on, like a roller bag in there. Maybe if it was like one of those thin ones. Mm-hmm. So you can go shopping. You could put like 3 grocery bags maybe in there. And then if you don't have anyone with you, you can just put them all in the passenger seat. So you can go to like Costco if you're just buying pizza. So yeah.
Just a 3-pack of pizza. What is it? A
3-pack of pizza.
That's it. That's all you can get.
That's like some of those hot dogs.
Or a big bag of nuts.
Big bag of nuts. Yeah, like this almonds.
A gallon of milk. Yeah.
So what do you think the destination charge is on this mighty beast that I had a grand old time driving around until my back hurt?
So he's like, I can't do it
until
anymore.
until my old man back. If you're in your 20s, you're like, this is fine. But yeah, I'm not in my 20s. Definitely not that anymore.
I'm going to say $995.
I'm going to go $12.95.
Oh man, not even close.
Of course, Sam won.
$3,695.
I won.
Well, you imagine how you have to treat these things. My cousin works for.
Usually, for more expensive cars, they actually don't have, because automakers are using the destination charge as a way to hide price increases.
Yeah,
right.
And I mean, Lamborghini, there's no pretense that they're trying to hide the price.
Yeah, but they have to cover it in like diapers and like bubble wrap when they ship it. So that adds up.
Did they deliver it to you on a flatbed or in a trailer?
No, they drove it.
Really?
So typically, yeah. The last when I got the Superfast, it was on a flatbed or a trailer. When I got the Urus, it was in a trailer. But this one they just drove it. But it's also it's one of the review cars. Mm-hmm. It's got over 3,000 miles on it in a supercar. Totally fine. Yeah. Which is great because 10, 15 years ago, if you had 3,000 miles on a supercar, your miles
time for a complete rebuild.
It was done.
Yeah, you got to rebuild that thing. So that's nice. So yeah, that's the benefit of being owned by the Volkswagen Group is like, we can, use some of the stuff we've learned from the other people and make our engines a little bit, last a little longer.
Just hang out for a little while.
So if you're rich and you actually are a person who this is not a poser car. This is not the I bought a Huracan and I'm going to the club, because you're not. No, it's not that car.
That's the base Huracan, the standard.
That's the base Huracan, because you're going to get the same. It doesn't matter which version of Huracan you get. You're going to get the same people come up and trying to do Instagram photos with you. So this is not for that person. This is not I'm going to the club. This is not I'm cruising through Miami or I'm cruising through LA. This is I want a Huracan and I want to go to the track. And but I also want to be able to sort of just drive it around and have some nice, some fun on the back road.
This is for people who are not quite ready to sign up for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series.
Yeah.
But, because they run, modified Huracans. But, you still want to take it to track days and just have some fun with it.
Yeah. That's what this car is. So if you're listening to me and you're a person who just wants to have the Huracan because it looks cool, do not buy this version. Save the money, save your spine, because you're gonna get in it and you're gonna be like, oh, there's no carpet, there's no this, there's no that, there's no like, yeah, that's all. It goes faster. That's you don't need all that when you're going fast. Get the base Huracan. Everyone else in the world is going to be like, oh my God, you got a Lamborghini, and that's all that matters.
That's it.
Or if you want to drive a Huracan in Detroit, get the Serato, because that's the off-road Huracan.
Oh yeah. Do not drive this in. Half the time I'm like slowing down. I was going around the back roads, and the ones near my house are really bumpy. If I go to Marin, they're much nicer. But I'm just like driving up. I got to slow down because I know there's a dip here. Up, I got to slow down because I know there's a this here. Up, I got to. And it didn't help with the the rains this year. Also, kind of like messed up our roads a bit. So yeah, there you go, Huracan.
Very good.
You need a V10.
Yep.
Zoom, 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 zoom.
So I had something slightly less exciting than that. I had, again, a Ford Mustang Mach-E. It was a premium all-wheel drive extended range. And I've driven this configuration before on a couple of different occasions. Still really like the Mach-E. Still a really good EV. But I got this one again because Ford has finally started sharing cars with the version 1.2 BlueCruise, and I wanted to try it out. And as we've talked about here in the past, I was not a big fan of Ford's implementation of BlueCruise. I thought compared to GM Super Cruise and even Nissan's ProPilot 1.2 or 2.0, it was not as good. The new version, this latest version of BlueCruise, is much, much better. It's a significant upgrade from what they originally shipped. That said, I still don't think it's as good as Super Cruise.
Oh, okay.
It does getting better.
Yeah. I mean, earlier this year when we talked with Kelly Funkhauser from Consumer Reports, we talked about their study they did on ADAS systems and how they rated BlueCruise above Super Cruise. But one of the things that we learned from that discussion that was not in any of the stories that about that, including Consumer Reports' own article that they published, or any of the other media reports about that study, was that something that Kelly shared was that they didn't actually evaluate the hands-free capabilities. They were only really evaluating the hands-on system, the capabilities of the systems, and for that. BlueCruise did do better than Super Cruise because it kind of has a seamless transition between hands-off and hands-on modes, and that is still the case. In that one case, I would say BlueCruise is better than Super Cruise, but when it comes to hands-off, it's still not as capable. Still doesn't handle things quite as well as my experience with Super Cruise a few weeks back in the Cadillac CT4. So things that they've changed for this time. They've now added predictive speed control, which was one of my big complaints about the first one. So with predictive speed control, the system's using the map to look ahead at the road, and if you're approaching a curve that's a little bit too tight a radius for your speed, it'll automatically slow the car down a little bit as you approach that curve, and then resume your previous set speed as you exit the curve. GM has had that in Super Cruise since 2017 when they originally launched it. The original version of BlueCruise did not have it. This one has it, kind of. So
kind of, but not quite.
So it does, in fact, look ahead using the maps. It looks ahead, looks at the curves in the road, and it will slow you down. And in the instrument cluster, you'll see a little icon that looks like a white rectangle with black border. It looks like a road sign with what looks like a curve in there, and it actually even shows, depending on if it's curving to the left, it shows the arrow curving to the left or to the right. So that's nice, and it does slow you down just the way Super Cruise does, but it still also asks you to put your hands back on the wheel. Why?
Why?
I did talk with Sammy Omari earlier this week. He's the head of ADAS development at at Ford, and also CTO or CEO of Latitude AI, which is their new subsidiary that they started to develop level 3 systems. And he said, yeah, there's still something they're still working on that. Future versions might get away from that. But for now, for safety, they still want drivers to put their hands back on the wheel if they're approaching a tighter curve like that, even though they're slowing the vehicle down for you automatically. Okay, it's better, but there's still work to do. Another thing that they added for this new version of BlueCruise is lane change on demand. So this is something that GM added. Tesla's had it since 2018, 19, something around there in Autopilot.
Been a while.
Yeah. And GM added it in 2021 with their second gen Super Cruise that started on the Escalade. And so if you want to change lanes, you just tap on the turn signal stalk in either direction, and the sensors will look if the adjacent lane is all clear, it will go and change lanes for you. And also if you're driving along and if the vehicle in front of you is below your set speed, the sensors will look, see if it's all clear. If it is, it'll pop up in the cluster and say lane change suggested. And if you want to do it, again, just tap on the turn signal stalk and it'll go and execute the lane change. Actually works really, really well. Still no automatic lane changing. So this is something, and the Nissan system works the same way as the Ford. The Super Cruise now, you in the settings, you can go and change it between lane change on demand or auto lane change or auto overtaking. With auto overtaking on, it will, if it's all clear and you're below your set speed, it will just automatically, it'll alert you saying, hey, I'm going to do this in the next couple of seconds, and you can cancel it by tapping this turn signal stalk. If you don't cancel it, then it will do a nice smooth lane change, accelerate past the car in front of you, and as soon as there's a gap in the traffic back in the original lane, it will switch back. So it's very good lane discipline, works really well. The Ford system is still manual in that you have to initiate the lane change with the turn signal stalk, but when it does it very well. So no complaints there. Overall performance of the system, it's definitely smoother than it was before in terms of, the car wanders a little bit less in the lane, so it stays more locked into the center of the lane. And this was from my conversation with Sammy Omari. He described this as the stiffness of the system. How much does it try to keep the car locked into the center of the lane? And between the vehicle, the suspension dynamics of the vehicle and the road surface and everything, it's kind of a juggling act between how much stiffness you have and how much comfort you have. And most of the time I thought it was the BlueCruise worked great. One exception that I encountered when I was driving to Detroit to go to the Grand Prix last Sunday, the stretch of I-94 going into Detroit, it's grooved concrete, which can sometimes have some weird interactions with your tires. And going around curves in that, the car seemed to be kind of oscillating back and forth a little bit. Like when I was watching the fenders and looking where I was relative to the lane markings, it was staying. It didn't. I couldn't visually see it moving, but I could feel it kind of oscillating back and forth a little bit.
Those grooved roads are the worst.
Yeah, and the feeling is, when you're driving in a heavy crosswind, and the wind's buffeting and pulling the car one way and another. That's what it felt like. Even though, hey, Wheel Bearings listeners, it's Sam. And as I'm recording this, we're getting ready to head out tomorrow for a vacation trip in Hawaii. And one of the great things about going to Hawaii is all the fresh fish and the Asian-inspired food. We just love it there. We love eating the food there. And when we get back, we still love to eat that same kind of food, foods of the Pacific Islands. And this May, HelloFresh is helping by celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So for a limited time only, you can get some of that same kind of food with limited time authentic recipes created in partnership with chef Serbi Sani of New York's Tagmo restaurant, who's creating a special cultural taste tour right in your own kitchen. After May is over, as we get into the summer months, you're probably going to be having friends over for parties and everything. So if you're hosting a get-together, check out HelloFresh Market for crowd-pleasing appetizers, snacks, sides, and more for your next gathering. It'll save you a lot of time and a lot of hassle putting everything together as you get your friends together in the backyard. The best part, you can skip that extra trip to the grocery store. All you have to do is go to hellofresh.com/wheelbearings16, that's wheelbearings16, and use the coupon code wheelbearings16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. Remember, go to hellofresh.com/wheelbearings16 and use the coupon code wheelbearings16, that's wheelbearings16, for 16 free meals with free shipping. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. So if you haven't tried it yet, now's the perfect opportunity to get 16 free meals. Oh, there was no wind that day. And again, Sammy acknowledged, yep, that's something we're still working on. That's part of that balancing act of stiffness and suspension dynamics and everything else. So they're going to continue working on that, trying to improve that. And then one last feature that I thought was really good, something that Super Cruise does not do, was the lane nudge when you're passing a big truck. So you're going along and there's a truck in the adjacent lane, and as you come up to pass that truck, the BlueCruise will automatically shift the car over a few inches, and you'll see it in the cluster. You'll see the image of the vehicle in the lane that normally shows it in the center of the line. You'll see that image shift over to one side away from that vehicle. So you're still within the lane, but you're just given a little more gap, a few more inches, to that big truck that you're passing, which is always nice because especially going back to the wind gusts, sometimes the trailer can wander a little bit. So having that little bit of extra space makes you feel a little more comfortable. So that was a good thing, and I think that should be in all of these systems. Hyundai has that in their hands-on systems in the Genesis vehicles, in the GV80, G80 has it. I think the G90 has it. They will do that. They'll give you a little nudge away from a big truck when you're passing, and everybody else should be doing this as well. So
GM told me they added that because when I did the first drive with the Super Cruise, it just felt uncomfortable how close we were to those big trucks. So the next major version, when they added more roads, they added a little bit of a nudge because they realized that
I didn't notice.
It was making people uncomfortable.
I didn't notice Super Cruise doing that, and I hadn't heard them say
I'm just telling that's what they said.
Yeah, well, it's possible.
They said they do this.
Yeah.
Next time I get into one, I'll have to double check that. But so overall, it is a notable improvement compared to where BlueCruise was, but they still have work to do, and they know that they've acknowledged that to me. So I think we'll continue to see more updates in the next coming months and years to continue to hopefully make that better still and match the feature set of other systems, and hopefully when they get to the next generation stuff, we'll see more changes in the HMI that I've complained about, having capacitive sensors in the steering wheel, less mode confusion. They actually have changed the graphics a little bit, so it is a little more obvious now, and they give you when they want you to put your hands on the wheel, you get an audible tone, and it does switch from blue to kind of a black graphic thing momentarily, and the message pops up in the cluster. So it's better, but still there's more room for improvement. So
yeah,
fair.
Yeah, getting there.
And I think we talked last week about the pricing changes to BlueCruise, and the Monroney that they sent me for this vehicle that was so this is a Mach-E premium extended range all-wheel drive. This vehicle was built earlier in the year and delivered to Ford early in the year before they made their price cuts about a month and a half or so ago. So the MSRP is listed as total price is listed as $67,575. You want to guess on the delivery charge?
Ooh,
$995.
$996.
Robbie gets it. $1,300.
I was gonna say 12. I was gonna say $1,295, but I was like, oh, it's better to like really screw over Nicole.
Yeah. Thanks, Robbie. I love you too. Mwah.
So I did price out the exact same car on Ford.com this morning, and rather than $67,000, the same vehicle is now $62,000. Including and that includes $2,100 for 3 years of BlueCruise, which was included in that $67,000 price. And also they reduced the cost of the upgrade to the extended range battery, which when this Monroney was printed, that price was $8,600 for the bigger battery. It's now $7,000. So we're looking at over $5,000 less for the same vehicle compared to a few months ago. So that's a big improvement. Not, $62,000 is still
a lot of money.
Not inexpensive. But it's, again, it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, because we remember we thought parity between EVs and cars would happen in like 2022,
Right.
and then there was this whole like pandemic thing, and then and then we had like you couldn't get anything to build cars, and it was a whole mess. So now I don't know how far parity is off, but yet.
It's still,
it's just a moving target. It's like parity is like the new solid state battery. It's always a few years away.
Yeah. And one of the standard features, of course, is a tilt and telescoping steering column.
Ooh, Robbie, it's for you.
Well, it's a $60-something thousand car, so.
Yeah. All right. So that is the 2023 Mustang Mach-E with BlueCruise 1.2. All right. Let's talk about some of the stuff that happened this week. Let's start with Volvo.
Volvo, come on! I was going to spy some other cars, and now
they went to Milan to launch the new EX30, which is their new small crossover, which as the EX name
mighty,
as the EX name implies, is electric only. So this is I don't think that they've published full specs as far as dimensions go, but my understanding is it's a little bit smaller footprint than the XC40 and C40, but it has more interior room, and it's also a lot cheaper.
It's it's Volvo, so you're like, oh, it's a luxury brand. It's going to be this. Nope.
Yeah.
$35,000 is pretty cheap
for the U.S. That's the U.S. price for the base starting price, which is far and away the most affordable Volvo in a long time in the U.S. market. So yeah, this thing's battery electric only. It's going to have, for the US market, there's just one battery size, but you can get it with a single motor, or a dual motor configuration. Twin motor, gets you, let's see, they don't have the range for this one, but it's probably going to be somewhere around 240 or so, which is similar to the XC40. 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds, 422 horsepower.
Okay, the Lamborghini I'm driving right now is 3.3 seconds. Or 3.2. So I'm just throwing this out there. There's a whole, I wrote an article for TechCrunch about acceleration in EVs where I talked to Lamborghini's new CTO. So go read it about like what that means now, because
I want you to put the Lamborghini and the Volvo on a little right next to each other. I just want to see the little Volvo like go right by it.
The single motor extended range version is estimated to deliver 275 miles of range, which is, as we've said many times, anything in that ballpark is going to be more than sufficient for almost everybody. And especially for a smaller vehicle like this. And at $35,000 starting price, that is actually quite a bargain. This vehicle has now jumped right up on my list of, when the time comes to replace our Civic in the next, 3 or 4 years, this vehicle is definitely going to be one that we give some serious consideration to.
The same price as the cheap Konas.
Yeah.
The cheap EVs from the Hyundai group, like this is the same price. And it's like, oh, wow. Okay. So now, wow. For a Volvo.
And this is like for North America, they're only giving us these two variants. both with an NMC battery, which is a nickel manganese cobalt battery. In other markets, they're also going to offer a version with a lithium iron phosphate battery, which will be even less expensive. It'll have less range. It'll probably be somewhere in the 210, 215 mile range. But it'll be even less expensive than this. And, even at 35 for a nickel battery, that is a hell of a bargain. And
It's a deal.
153 kilowatt charging, DC fast charging. This is definitely one worthy of consideration. What do you think of it?
I think it's going to be. I think it's a great idea. I mean, the pricing on that is just so crazy when you look at what the average EV costs and what you're getting. When you're getting into, if you're looking at something that's in that 35,000 price range, you're getting the most stripped down, basic, nothing version of whatever car it is. You know what I mean? Like you can't. This is going to be a Volvo, so it's going to be nice and kind of upscale.
In some respects, it is a little stripped down. There's no instrument cluster. There's just the center display like you get in a Tesla, Model 3 or Model Y.
Right, which is what I'm going, and I'm not a fan of that. Honestly,
Yeah,
I don't
I'm not
like.
really a fan of that.
That's the one thing that
I'm just like, ugh.
it gives me pause.
I don't, and I know it's still, everything's still there, and I know it has all the information. You just have to shift your eyes to the right, but I don't like having the instrument cluster where all the other stuff is. I want it to be sort of dedicated right there on its own, so I can see everything I want to see.
The
Is there a head-up
people
display?
had the right idea where they put a head-up display.
The head-up, but the problem with the head-up is as soon as you put on polarized sunglasses, you lose.
Well, you just got to tilt your head every time you're like, you're driving.
Like this, right? That's super,
Let me tilt my head a little bit. Okay, I'm doing 70.
And I always wear polarized glasses. So then I'm like, well, I can't these head-ups.
Yeah.
I always like check them out and I drive. I'm like, take your glasses off, squint for a little while. Yep, it works fine. And put my glasses back on.
There are heads-up display technologies that you can get that do work with polarized sunglasses.
Yeah, there are. But do most of them use it? How much? What's that? I wonder how many OEMs. I feel like most
all
of
of
the
them,
cars I've
none
been
of them.
in,
I haven't had with my. I have polarized. What do I wear? Oakleys? I don't know. Glasses that I wear for everything, and all of them require me to tilt my head a little bit to see
I
what's
haven't
going
seen
on.
one. I know that supposedly they do, but I haven't seen one where I haven't like had it go poof and disappear on me. So.
Like the really bright ones are, like the Mercedes ones that's really bright, so I don't tilt my head as much. I can tell it's on, but some of them
you
I
see, like,
realize it's on while I'm
it's
driving.
like you see like a ghost image almost. Like I can't entirely read it, but there's a ghost image with my speed limit on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's my big issue with the car right now.
Yeah, they also announced that there will be a cross-country version of this, which has it's basically a slightly lifted, more off-roady version of the same vehicle. Just like they have the XC60 and the XC60 cross country. But really, who needs that?
I don't know.
If you want to go off-roading, get a proper off-roader. Get a Wrangler
maybe.
EV when it comes out.
Yeah, Magneto. I hope they call it Magneto, and then they get sued by Marvel. It'll be fun.
Aren't they not calling it that? It's called
I don't
something
think.
else.
I think it's
That was just the concept.
They should have called it that though.
It's a cool name.
It is a cool name.
Yeah. Well, you never know. They might license the name from Disney.
Oh,
For a bazillion, million, zillion dollars.
good luck with that.
Hey, I mean, Motorola licensed the Droid name from Lucasfilm back in the day.
Do they really?
Yeah, but that
They
was
launched the original
Lucas.
Droid. Yeah.
That's not Disney. Disney's a whole other.
Well, Lucasfilm, over its history has been more than willing to sue people for copyright infringement or trademark infringement.
Yeah.
So
Next level with Disney. When I was in design school, that was like one of the things we talked about with we had copyright classes because we had designers. You have to know what you can and can't use and what you can and can't do, and we had a whole copyright class. And they're like, just don't mess with Disney. And they just started like naming off all these lawsuits that Disney had brought against like daycare centers and like.
But these days, Disney's scrambling to get as much revenue as it can. So, if they can get a few bucks per vehicle from Jeep,
it might be worth it.
they might decide it's worthwhile. All right, so that's the EX30. Let's see, I think it's coming late this year. Is it this year or next year? Did they say?
I think it said. Why did I see 20? I thought I saw 2024 in there somewhere.
Okay.
Scanning down the giant press release.
Yeah.
So we got a little ways to
Year
go.
two, four.
Order books for this. Oh no, that's for the cross country. Order books will open in 2024. They're starting to take pre-orders for the EX30, the regular EX30 now.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go. Buy
So
one
I'm not sure when they plan to deliver.
Oops,
It would be ironic if they actually end up shipping this before the EX90, which they announced a year ago.
Which is delayed now because they
because
have
of software problems.
issues of some kind. Did they ever elaborate what their software issue was, or is it just a big mystery?
It's just a big mystery.
Okay.
But the EX30 also will be built in China, which is, I think, part of how they managed to keep the price down.
Keeping the price down.
All right, so that's the Volvo EX30 coming soon.
Soon.
Ish.
Yeah.
Ish.
So, Nicole, you and I both
Yes.
were in Austin this week for
We had an adventure, Sam.
less than 24 hours.
Yes.
So we went to Austin at the invitation of Lexus to see two new SUVs that are launching. The GX, and when I think you and I both have driven the GX, the existing GX
The old
in
one,
the last
yes.
year and a half.
Yeah.
And complained that it felt old, and
Yeah.
it is old. It's
It was.
pretty
I think
ancient.
it's 14 years. I saw
Yeah.
somewhere that it's since its last seen in all new. So it looks.
Yeah,
and
it came
feels
out.
old
It came out in
because-
2009.
Yeah, it is.
So there's an all new GX, which is based on the same platform as the aforementioned Sequoia and Tundra. And then there's also the TX, which is a new model in the Lexus lineup. After making an attempt to slightly stretch the RX in its previous generation to add a third row, they decided, no, let's just do a proper 3-row utility. So they have the TX, which is basically a fancier Grand Highlander.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's a fancy gray, and it looks very Grand Highlander-ish, except from the front because you've got the Lexus. It's not really a spindle grille anymore. What do they call it?
The
Spindle
spindle
body.
The spindle's evolving, becoming a little more subdued. Than it was.
Less in your face than the old version was.
Yeah.
Just
So-
slats.
It's nice. I mean, I think it's probably going to have all of the attributes we liked about the Grand Highlander in terms of space and driving dynamics and everything else. It also has 3 powertrain options, but they're not the same 3 powertrain options that are in the Grand Highlander. You have the turbocharged hybrid max, the gas 2.4 liter turbo, and instead of the base naturally aspirated hybrid system, you get the plug-in hybrid that we were talking about that you can't get in the Grand Highlander. I thought it was because the volumes wouldn't be enough to justify it, but they apparently have decided that, yep, it's worth it. So you can get the Lexus TX 550H Plus, I think is what it's called.
I didn't get the whole.
With a plug-in hybrid with about 33 miles of electric range.
Which is good. I think I already established plug-in hybrids. I think they're the nice happy medium until everybody gets used to EVs, and if you don't have the versatility to have access to charging and you travel a lot. And that's the thing with this. This is a road trippy kind of car. There's a whole family, you can go out, you can road trip in it, which is great. But the last thing you want to do on a road trip with kids is just sit there and wait for it to charge. That's torture. So, so it's nice to just have the plug-in hybrid, and then you can decide, we're going to use that EV part of this vehicle or not. We're just going to use the gas part. So.
And one detail that I did notice about the TX that is missing, that was in the Grand Highlander that you particularly liked.
Oh yes, I love this. Yes. They don't have the little shelf on the passenger side in the front. There's a little shelf in the dash where you can plug in there's a USB port, you can plug in your phone, and you can tuck it on the little shelf, and the shelf even has a little lip, so your phone can happily sit there and charge away. They don't have that. It's just dashboard. Fail. I really wanted it to have that. That was such a neat feature. I love that.
And you particularly liked that that third USB port in the front was on the right hand side, on the door side.
Because it's always annoying. And when they're in the center, And depending on the car, one's a charging port and one connects you so that you're into the infotainment. And if your passenger plugs into the wrong one by accident, then it's a little confusion. If it's just you have one right there for the passenger, you plug into the one directly in front of you with a handy dandy shelf. I love that. That is so cool. Everybody, they should always have one on the passenger side. It's just the passengers.
Because if it's in the middle, sometimes it's in the way of stuff like buttons that the driver has to use.
Right. And now you've got two. If you're plugging them in, you've got the driver's phone plugged in. You got the passenger's phone plugged in. There's cables everywhere. Nope, here the passenger's is plugged in over here, and it's out of the way, and the cable and the phone are sitting on the little shelf, but not in the Lexus TX, just in the Grand Highlander.
Yeah. All right. So what did you think of the GX?
I like the GX much. I like the GX a lot. I like the GX. It looks good.
Yeah.
They had the I don't want to say Overland, Over Trail, which is their off-road version of it, which has 2 rows instead of 3, because you can get it as a 3 row, except in the Over Trail, which is only a 2 row. You can't get 3 rows in the Over Trail. I thought it looked great. I think it's gorgeous. It has it's neat when you look at it. You see other vehicles like, okay, it does look a little bit Defender. It even has a back that looks a little bit like just from the back window back in the cargo area that makes me think a little bit of like the Jeeps, the Grand Wagoneer and Wagoneer, the way they kind of did stuff in the very back. So it feels like it takes in a good way, from some very fancy,
and even
nice...
even the classic Land Cruisers.
Yeah,
the classic Land Cruiser.
So it's I don't want to say steals because that makes it because it does look like its own vehicle.
It's got that chunky squared off.
Yeah.
Why do we love a chunky square car?
Because they look like they can do anything. Like zombie apocalypse, I don't want something streamlined. I want the chunky car. So I feel like that's what this one does. I love how it looks. I don't know if I would think that it's going to be people who have a GX. We talk to people who stay with Toyota and just want another Toyota and are going to buy the Sequoia. I feel like anybody who liked the GX, who's like, I want another one, they're going to love this one because it's such a difference. It's a big step forward. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to drive it. I think it looks amazing.
Yeah, I think clearly I think this thing is targeted directly at the Land Rover Defender. That market. Because it's going to be in this probably in the same price ballpark, and have some serious off-road chops to it. Which, granted, the old GX did as well, because it was based on the Land Cruiser Prado that they sell overseas. So it had off-road capability. It just didn't really look like it. This one looks like it.
Yeah. It looks good, and I think that was sort of the consensus of everybody. The collective automotive media that was all there, because it was a pretty good crew of people that were there to watch the debut, and everybody's sort of like, oh, the TX looks good and it's a nice 3-row SUV, and that's fine. And like, whoa, look at the GX, this is amazing. And that's kind of everybody sort of did that when we were there last night. So we're not the only ones that were really impressed with the style and how it looked. And the on paper, it looks really good. You never know until you drive a thing if it actually lives up to it. But on paper and in person, it looks fantastic. Like it's going to be really good for Lexus.
Yeah. So after the Lexus event, we went back to the hotel, and I sent you a text message saying, "Hey, do you want to go for a ride in a robotaxi?" I
was like, "Yes, I do."
So Cruise last December started doing driverless robotaxi services in most of downtown Austin. It's kind of in between the 2 freeways. I forget which ones they are. Like north of the river, in between the 2 freeways. Sort of most of that central part of Austin is where the service area is now. And you can get the Cruise app on iPhone and sign up to get on the wait list to get an account, and they're gradually adding people as they get more vehicles available. So this was your first time ever, I believe, in a fully automated vehicle.
So
no safety driver or anything.
Right. See, that's the difference. I've been in them at various sort of, even on public roads, but there's always been a driver there just in case. Like he's not doing anything. His hands are, crossed. He's not touching the wheel. He's not touching the pedals. But there was a driver there just in case the little automatic car was like, wait, I'm confused. And very often an engineer sitting there in the passenger seat with a laptop frantically typing. That's my previous experience. So this was kind of cool. Like and it was, I was excited to say, okay, I'm going to put my life in the hands of modern technology and see what
could
happens.
possibly go wrong?
Nothing could go wrong. Nothing, except
A few things.
For a few things that went wrong. But Sam and I are both here, so we didn't die.
That's right. I mean, there's an old saying among pilots that any landing that you walk away from is a good one.
Right. And we
both walked away at least 6 blocks from this one.
6 blocks there and back from this one. Yeah. So we go downstairs to the hotel, and the hotel is supposed to be in the range of where this is operating. And there's this thing called the Butterfly Bridge, and literally you look out the door and it's like, boom, right there next to the hotel. It's we're going to pick you up at the Butterfly Bridge. And Sam and I are waiting, and they're all little white, with the orange, and they have all the sensors and stuff. So you can't miss this. It doesn't look like, oh, I accidentally missed it. It's Prius number 800 picking me up on an Uber ride. It looks different. You know what it is. And it says it's here. And we're both like pacing around like, it's not here. Where is it? I don't know where it is. And he looks in the app and it says it's like 2 blocks away. We're like, but it says it's here, but it's not. When you look at the picture, it's not matching the reality of our reality. Mm-hmm. And so we go to walk 2 blocks. And by the time we get to the 2 blocks, it's taken too long. And it's like, fine, see ya, get another ride. Right. So then he hails it. Did you hail it immediately, hail it again? Or did you make a call then?
I hailed it again first.
Yeah.
And, it was showing us a pickup spot that was, as you said, 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the screen, it's like 605 West 4th Street, I think. And turn around, looking at the building, it says 605 West 4th Street.
Huge letters on the building. There's no way we're in the wrong spot.
We were clearly in the right place. And, then I zoomed out on the map in the app and saw that the car was apparently sitting another 4 blocks away on 6th Street. Waiting for us.
Like, wait, it got further. We went to it. It's almost like like it was like a carrot on the carrot in front of the donkey to make you keep walking. It's like another. What the heck? Come on.
And so at that point, I canceled it and I called my contact at Cruise and explained what was going on. And as we were walking towards that other location where it seemed that was where the car could actually pick us up, so that was another 4 blocks away from where we were. I was talking with my Cruise contact, and she was on another line with Cruise Ops trying to figure out what was going on. So we finally, on the 3rd attempt, managed to get to be at the same spot as where the car was going to pick us up, a little Chevy Bolt named Alcatraz.
Yes. Which I feel like should have been our warning. It's named after a prison.
It's named after a prison that's in the middle of the bay. Like its whole deal is you can't escape.
Yes. And there were a few moments.
Well, we could have escaped. I mean, all you got to do is hit the end ride button. There's a big button, on the headliner. It says end ride. And you can hit that at any point, and the car is supposed to pull over and stop and let you get out. But we didn't do that.
No, we did not.
We wanted to get the full experience. So we got in the car, and in these bolts, they have a tablet on the back of each of the front seats for the rear seat passengers. Mm-hmm. And when I wrote it in San Francisco, what it's supposed to display on there is your route, what route the car is taking to your destination. So it's supposed to verify this is your destination. Here's the route I'm going to take. And then it's also got, you can tap on there to, have it play, change music, play whatever music you want, or change the climate control settings. And this was a relatively warm evening in Austin, being in June. So it was getting a little steamy, and we'd been walking for multiple blocks.
Yeah. There was that too.
And the screens were showing nothing but, in case of emergency, here's the number to call for emergency, and then nothing else. It wasn't showing any of this information. So we couldn't adjust the climate control or do anything else. And
it was all the screens, the infotainment screen in the front that we can't access anyway, plus the 2 screens on the back of the headrest.
They were all showing the same thing.
And we did push the button for help. Yeah. There's a get me out of the car now button that's really large, and a smaller call for help. And to be fair, the woman that answered the phone was great. She's like, yep, I see that Alcatraz is, noted, and we see that you don't have your screens working. And she asked, like, I think she said, do you feel safe, or do you feel comfortable completing the ride? And we're like, yeah, we'll keep going. She's like, okay, well, we'll note that, and we'll have it checked out, and thank you so much, and blah, 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 have a good night. So, like, we decided I guess we could have said, forget it, we're out, and hopped out. But
And walked
we
another
decided
6 blocks for another
for the
cruise.
next one. Yeah. But we kept plugging along with Alcatraz.
And it mostly worked fine. It didn't really do anything too stupid for the most part. There was one stretch along one. It did take a very roundabout route to get to our destination.
It was very circuitous. I think it can't possibly
went through
be
a couple
the
of
only
residential
way.
neighborhoods.
Yeah. I was like, where are we? Is it going to kill us? What's happening? Like,
It's gonna take you off somewhere and bury you in the desert.
Right? It's mad at us because we reported its screen's not working.
How dare you?
It did eventually make its way to the destination that I had selected, and along the way, I think it was along West 24th Street, for some reason it slowed way down. Yeah, and this was a fairly major thoroughfare, and it got down to like 15 or 16 miles an hour, and we couldn't figure out why it was going so slow. And it's like it was, it wasn't sure where it was, and it was looking around at street signs trying to figure out where am I supposed to go. It turns out because I shared the video with Cruise that we recorded.
What did they say? I'm curious.
And also they had all the data because these cars are recording everything that happens every time they go out. It records the data from all the sensors. It knows where they are, and they can analyze that later. So they did take a look at the data and looked at the video and determined that apparently where it did that slowdown was actually a school zone.
It was the middle of the night.
I know. This is something they're going to fix. But it was a school zone that right now the cars are programmed to obey the school zone speed limits even when it's not active.
Even a
school
So
time.
everybody else is flying by us, and here we are driving 16 miles an hour. Oh my god! Well, at
kids.
least there's an answer to the question because we're sitting there going, "What is wrong with this thing?"
So we did ultimately get to our destination, and in the show notes, there's a link to the video. It's about 22 minutes, I think, of the entire ride.
Our adventure.
And then going through at the end our evaluation that we submitted to Cruise.
Yeah.
And then after we were done with that, then I summoned another one, and it turned out to be Alcatraz came back for us.
He came back for us. We're like, dang it, Alcatraz, your screens don't work. Let us have a different one. No.
But at least on the trip back, it did take a much more direct route.
It did. It definitely was much faster on the way back. And we did discover there was a sketchy little spot where it was a little bit tricky for the car to navigate, and it navigated it, but there was one in front of us, like a robotaxi in front of us, and it got confused. Like they were all getting confused in this one little spot, just because of how the cars were parked on the side of the road. It was tight parking with parallel parking, and it was a little confusing.
You basically had room for three vehicles across, but there were cars parked all the way along one side, and so it's kind of tight for two on the other side,
right.
And so cars were kind of giving way to each other and alternating back and forth.
And the robotaxi was very friendly, giving way to everything that went by.
Being cautious.
But then the one in front of us had a moment where it decided it couldn't clear the car that was parked, and it started to back up towards us. And I was like, oh, no. And our car honked at it. So I'm glad to know.
Which, again, Cruise told me that is something they recently added.
Which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
Because then you know that
little chirp of the horn.
Yeah, a little like toot. I'm like, ooh.
The robots are talking to each other.
The robots are talking to each other. It didn't flip him off though, so they haven't quite gotten the full human experience. It needs
well,
a
we don't know
what
we don't know what emojis they might have sent between each other. Roadrunner might have sent a middle finger up emoji back to Alcatraz.
Back to Alcatraz when Alcatraz honked. That's possible. That's possible.
But we did eventually get back to where we originally got picked up, and then had to walk another 6 blocks back to our hotel.
Yes. We thought maybe it would bring us, and we're like, nope, it's still going to be 6 blocks. Okay. And I went running downstairs in the shoe because I was like, robotaxi. I didn't change my shoes, so I still had on like the slight heels that I wore to dinner. I'm like, I hate this dang thing right now. My feet hurt.
The future is beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're making progress ever so slowly, but there's still work to be done. Kind of like BlueCruise.
Yeah, so it's not like, does it feel like I'm picking on? I actually thought it was really cool. It worked better than I thought, but it still feels like it's new. Like it still feels like it's figuring it out. But I thought, okay, I never felt like in fear of my life. I was mostly just confused. Like, why are we going slow? Why are we going around this car? Why are you being so kind to everybody? Be a little aggressive, that kind of thing. But it never felt like truly never felt like I was nervous. Like, oh gosh, we're going to get hurt. It was just kind of perplexing at times.
Yeah, it's like when I came out of that concert a few weeks ago, and there was a Waymo in one lane and a Cruise in the other, and they were both trying to get into each other's lane, and they just kept slowing down,
Yes, they're like,
parallel with each other. They were both confused because they don't work together, so they don't know what they're like. What do I do?
yep, exactly. That
It's
kind
pretty
of thing.
great,
But
and
it
of
was
course,
cool.
traffic's just backing up behind them.
Everyone's
We had a
getting
little
mad.
bit of that on that street as well. You know,
We did.
when we were behind Roadrunner.
Yeah, the people of San Francisco can attest that whenever you're behind a cruise, you're like, oh.
Like, no. Yeah.
All right. So you can watch the video to see more of our little cruise adventure. All right. Next up, Tesla a couple of years ago started offering insurance to their customers because a lot of Tesla owners were complaining that insurance companies were charging them way more to insure their Tesla than other vehicles. And, there were some valid reasons for that. Like, parts were hard to get, and Tesla charged a lot of money for them. And you could only get, your body work done at a Tesla approved shop and things like that because they wouldn't deliver parts to anybody else. So Tesla started their own insurance offering for customers. And, because the vehicles are all connected and they collect all kinds of telemetry data from the vehicles, they're able to at least nominally offer better rates to customers. Mm-hmm. So one thing that most people don't realize about Tesla insurance, like most insurance companies, when you get your car insurance, every 6 months you get a bill. It's usually 6 months at a time, and you pay the same amount every month for at least 6 months, and they might adjust it up or down the next 6 months. Tesla adjusts their premiums month to month. It's dynamic pricing, kind of like surge pricing for an Uber. Because what they do is they are continuously calculating a driver safety score in the vehicle based on how you drive, how aggressively you turn the steering wheel, how aggressively you brake or accelerate. And your safety score can go up or down. And based on that, every month they adjust the price of your insurance. So you never know on any given month how much you're going to pay for your car insurance. Makes it a little hard to budget sometimes. There's another interesting little detail. Money.com did an article on Tesla insurance, and something that hasn't really been mentioned publicly, at least not that I've seen anywhere, is that one of the factors that Tesla includes in determining your premium price is whether or not you use Autopilot. And of course, we've been hearing for years from Elon Musk how much safer it is when you use Autopilot, how much less likely you are to get into a crash when you use Autopilot. Apparently, the guys at Tesla Insurance are not aware of those claims, and they're just going based on the data they actually get from claims and from other stuff. And so, if you have a Tesla and you use Tesla Insurance and you use Autopilot, you will actually pay more for your insurance, not less, despite the fact that it will supposedly reduce the number of crashes.
So is it because, okay, I have a question. Is it specifically because the Autopilot causes more issues, or because people who use Autopilot are worse drivers?
No, it's because the Autopilot can cause more crashes.
It's literally because, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. I was
Autopilot is
trying to come up with
considered a
positive.
higher risk feature and might be considered a factor for a greater risk of accidents. Whoops.
Yep. Yeah.
And if anyone's going to be judge it, like keeping track of all this, it's the insurance people. They're
oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
They're all about
into
data
all those
and-
details.
so whoopsie.
Yep. So if you own a Tesla and you like to use Autopilot, you may want to consider getting your car insurance from somebody besides Tesla.
Because they will charge you more for
Yeah.
using the thing that they told you is better.
Right.
Ta-da!
Yikes.
All right.
Yikes.
On the plus side for Tesla, they did have another win this week, and we are now seeing the death march towards the end of CCS
Yes, we
for
are.
charging. GM announced while we were in Austin,
Yes.
Mary Barra did a Tesla Spaces call with Elon Musk, just like Jim Farley did a couple of weeks ago. But unlike Jim, who stayed on the line with Elon for almost an hour, I think Mary was in and out in about 7 minutes. Basically regurgitated the information that was in the press release and said, "Okay, see ya." Didn't take
I'm out.
Didn't take any questions from listeners. Or
here's the
from
news.
Milan.
Bye. That was it. Yeah.
And the news is essentially exactly the same as the Ford news. Starting early next year, GM EVs will have software built in to support superchargers, and there's going to be adapters available to plug your CCS-equipped GM EV into a supercharger. So you won't have to use the Tesla app or anything like that. It'll all be built into the car. And then from 2025 onwards, all new GM EVs will no longer be equipped with CCS connectors. They will use the Tesla NACS, North American Charging Standard connector.
You can get a little adapter for CCS when Electrify America is for the four stations that are left.
Yeah. Well,
and the two that work? No.
Yeah. Well, my guess is by early 2025, we will see quite a few of the CCS stations being converted over with NACS connectors on them instead of CCS connectors. Because by that time, we're going to be starting to see a lot more volume of EVs compared to what we have today. And, there's a site called EV Station that actually has a tracker where they're tracking the companies, both charging automakers and charging equipment providers, and also charging network operators to those that have announced support for NACS. And notably, one of those is EVgo. Electrify America. I reached out to them the other day, and they said we haven't made any decisions yet, but I'm sure it's only a matter of time. But EVgo, which has a big partnership with GM to deploy something like 2,700 new DC fast charging stations, says they're upgrading hundreds of stations with integrated Tesla connectors. EVgo is the only EV charging platform that is capable of charging all three fast charging standards, CHAdeMO, SAE Combo, or CCS, and Tesla, without the need of a separate adapter. So my guess is by 2025, we will see a substantial number of public charging stations, and it's only a matter of time. I'm sure that lobbyists from GM and Ford and other companies are already pressuring DOE to change the rules for the NEVI program, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. Because right now, to get those grants to build new chargers, it has to be CCS. And I'm sure they're pushing hard to get that.
Oh yeah, they're getting that because it's the most cars on the road have that. Majority of the cars on the road have NACS. Yeah. My biggest issue still is that the fact that yes, Electrify America has issues, but I can contact someone at Electrify America and talk to them.
Yeah, good luck contacting anybody at Tesla.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if Tesla is going to spin off their charging network, their charging system as a different company at some point.
Probably not.
Or
I don't think so, because they like to be vertically integrated.
Yeah.
You never know. They might, but I doubt it.
Yeah. But still, the fact that I can't contact anyone at Tesla about, like, let's say, we're building out the supercharging network, and because they're building it out quicker than they were, which, they've been really quick, suddenly we're having issues with Tesla superchargers. Yeah. And then you're like, well, who do I contact? Is it going to be like Twitter where I just get a poop emoji as a reply?
Well, yeah, it's funny. On Friday, I sent emails to some contacts at GM and Ford to ask a couple of questions. Like, first of all, do they have to pay any royalties to Tesla in order to use this connector? And the answer from both companies was no. There's no cost. They're not paying Tesla anything for that. So that's good. The other thing I asked was whether Tesla is providing an SDK, a software development kit, that they can use to integrate the support for the superchargers into their in-vehicle software. And I haven't gotten a response back from Ford yet. They're looking into it. But the response from my GM contact was, well, you should probably reach out to Tesla about this.
Yeah, I know another journalist who reached out to GM, and they said, hey, reach out to Tesla. And you're like,
I sent back a response saying, are you aware that in 2020 Tesla completely disbanded its communications department, and they do not respond to anything? It's a black hole. So my guess is Tesla probably does have an SDK of some sort that they will give to other automakers to integrate in their software stack.
Like Electrify America, EVgo, they all had an opportunity to really just be like, we're going to make it. And it's just like, we got to get it out quick. And so, trying to expand quickly at the expense of reliability just sort of shot them in the foot.
Yeah.
And it is unfortunate because I do feel like you look at these companies that are all doing this, you think if you paid, like you said, just paid a little bit more, been a little bit more thoughtful in how they did it instead of just like push, let's get it out there, even if it's not working. If it all worked, if it all been seamless, if they'd had fewer, but the ones they had worked, they'd have been much better off.
Yeah. Womp womp.
Womp womp.
All right.
Womp womp.
That's our official. If you email us, our press department, our official reply will be womp womp.
Womp womp.
So we do have a couple of listener questions related to NACS. So let's hit those. Jeff D in the Discord asked question: how fast do you think the small EV makers like Fisker, VinFast, Lucid, etc. will get on board the NACS train?
Probably pretty quickly, I would think. I mean, Lucid is just populated with ex-Tesla employees who are not fans of Elon Musk because they had to work with Elon Musk,
including their CEO.
Yeah,
right.
And so they're all just like, "Oh my God, that guy!" Like the stories I cannot like share about Elon Musk are vast. But at the same time, you want to sell cars, you want to, and so you're just like, this is where we've gone because CCS just didn't have a company behind it that could deploy.
It's like they have to hate Elon Musk, hate Tesla, but like, okay, now they're winning. Like on this particular front, they're winning.
Yeah, it's like VHS and Betamax, but Betamax won this time.
Yeah.
Betamax won this time. Sony won.
Yeah.
Someone call Sony and say, "Hey, you guys won." They're like, "What?"
In the alternate universe, you guys won.
In the ultimate universe, Betamax won.
Yeah.
My guess is that by the end of 2026, there will be no new EVs built, and it actually might well be sooner than that. There will be no new EVs built with a CCS Type 1 connector on them.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you can drive, like in 20, you're going to be able to just like get in a Ford or GM and drive across country like you could with a Tesla without worrying.
Yeah.
That's huge because that's the thing. That's the killer app for Tesla is its charging network. And so, whenever people are like, well, what if I drive across country? And I'm like, well, then you should get a Model 3. If that's a thing you do all the time.
Or it's important enough to you for the one time you do it, then you need to have a Tesla. Yeah.
But now you can get an Ioniq. Soon you'll probably be able to get an Ioniq 6 that you can drive across country or an Ioniq 5. And you're like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The other question from Leith in the Discord about this was, can NACS provide the power needed for the 800 plus volt systems to charge at full speed? And then also, is there headroom in the NACS standard for future fast charging cars? So yeah, it can support 800 volt systems, and it can do it at full speed, but it does require some changes in the software in the vehicle. Because of the way some of these 800 volt systems are implemented in the vehicle. Like, for example, Hyundai Motor Group, they are making changes to their in-vehicle charging management so that it can charge at full speed from an NACS connector. There's nothing inherent about that connector that prevents charging at fast speeds. It's more a matter of compatibility between the charger and the vehicle. So they're working on that. And then is there headroom in the standard for future fast charging cars? Yeah, definitely. They'll be able to go to multiple hundreds of kilowatts. And then Tesla also has a megawatt charger. I forget what their exact name for it is that they announced with the Semi. That can go upwards of it's a different connector, a different cable. But in a lot of ways it functions very similarly to NACS, and that's designed for like large semis, tractor trailers, heavy duty vehicles that need to charge much larger batteries.
Yeah. Also, the Tesla chargers are easier to handle. The cables.
Yeah, that's an important thing. Although hopefully Tesla will start putting longer cables on the superchargers.
That's going to be because when I took that BMW up and I had to park in the wrong spot to use the Tesla charger, and when Tom over at I forget how you say it, Tom Malogny, when Malogny had that Ford. They have 150. Lightning, it just barely. They have 150 Lightning, and it just barely. So they're going to have to do.
Well, and I just saw a video this week from Alex at Alex on Autos, He took a Toyota BZ4X to a supercharger and tried to charge it, and he had the same issue because the charge port was so far back on the fender that he had to park it kind of at an angle to get to it to reach, and it didn't charge very fast though. But those cars don't charge very fast to begin with.
Yeah.
All right, last one we have is actually an audio comment that Michael Burns sent in for us. So I'm going to play that now.
Hello, Wheel Bearings. This is Mr. Burns from Atlanta. Thank you for taking my comments for this episode. I want to thank Sam, Robbie, and Nicole for their commitment to quality automotive podcasting week to week. You guys put on a fun podcast, and I always enjoy each new episode. I just want to share my comments as a first-time EV anything owner after about 3 weeks of having my first PHEV. I made that decision to get a PHEV based on input from Sam, Robbie, and Nicole from the podcast, and also from feedback from the lovely folks on the Discord server. My previous vehicle was a 2018 Ram 1500 quad cab. My new ride is a 2022 Jeep Wrangler 4xe Rubicon. I did buy that used. Why did I pick a PHEV over any other kind of vehicle? Well, it's back to the office after COVID, and 13 to 15 mile per gallon fuel economy and $80 plus fill-ups just aren't cutting it. So another ICE vehicle was out of the picture immediately. I also can't really afford a BEV right now, and I didn't want to immediately have to get a level 2 charger for fast home charging. One other reason for picking a PHEV is I didn't want the range anxiety from my spouse, and frankly, with the PHEV electric range, 24 to 45 miles round trip fit my commute perfectly. Why'd I pick the Jeep? Well, Nicole's recommendation was top of mind, but there were some other reasons for getting it as well. First, it still can tow. I volunteer with dog sports and need to pull a trailer on occasion. It still can definitely go off-road. I do like to go to the North Georgia mountains, and I also have to traverse muddy horse fields for those dog sports. Frankly, I'm very happy with the Stellantis switchgear infotainment, Uconnect. I just love the layout of their vehicles. They're pretty consistent from brand to brand. And I wanted a dedicated space in the back for the dogs. Other PHEV SUVs cut down on headroom for the sake of aerodynamics. And frankly, I needed something that was much taller and boxier in back. First, let's talk about the used EV buying experience. I'm going to say it up front. I'm a fan of CarMax. I don't like negotiations and the traditional dealer model. I did still do some research on Car Gurus and found some candidates at dealers in other states. There was not much to choose from here that met my requirements. And then suddenly my local CarMax had the perfect ride show up, and I jumped on it as soon as it was listed on the website. Don't expect to get a level 1 charging cable with your used EV. CarMax said if the cable wasn't in the photos on the website, it wasn't going to come with one. I pushed back on this and asked for a concession or price allowance before I'd make the purchase. Thankfully, they offered $500 as an allowance, to which I agreed, and I got the check from their corporate office about a week ago. As a side note about the charger, my local Stellantis dealer, where I've had my Ram and Chrysler serviced in the past, couldn't lay hands on the 2 OEM Jeep chargers in their inventory, and it sounded to me like they're either getting bought up and or stolen off the lot and showing up with markups on eBay. Frankly, a third-party charger is likely going to be your best bet if your used EV doesn't come with the cable. One other thing, plan on requesting an overnight test drive. CarMax doesn't charge up its PHEVs very well, and I would expect the same from a local dealership. It took me about 15 minutes to get approved for a 24-hour test drive, and I used that extra drive time to check out everything on the vehicle, including the different drivetrain modes and charging experiences. As a follow-up to the charger issue, since the vehicle didn't come with a level 1 charging cable initially, I got a temporary Electron level 1 charger based on Sam's recommendation. It turned out pretty well and worked just fine. I did use the allowance from CarMax to get a Grizzle E Mini all-weather portable charger that's switchable between level 1 and level 2. That's a pretty robust little piece of hardware for about $500. Secondly, I'd like to talk about the Jeep PHEV driving experience so far. I am ecstatic about this vehicle. I love that I'm getting so much better than 13 miles per gallon. I'm getting 38 miles per gallon after just 2 fill-ups and about 1,100 miles on the odometer. I'm doing about a 60-40 split on electric versus gas, about 525 to 550 miles per tank. Electric usage would be higher if my company's office had a charger. I can just barely get to the office and all the way back home before I run out of battery charge. On days that I've worked at my satellite offices that do have charge point stations, I've gotten well beyond the Jeep's 24-mile electric range, and it's just super fun to roll up into the driveway at the end of the day on electric. As the Wheel Bearings team has said, you get the most from a PHEV if you charge it overnight and at work. I also totally understand why Nicole recommended this vehicle. There's plenty of power with just the electric. There's plenty of power with the 280 horsepower turbo i4. And there's lots of passing power with both. It's saved my bacon a few times already in Atlanta traffic. I'm a little disappointed that the PHEV hybrid information screen isn't a default choice in the Uconnect infotainment system. I had to go digging around in the menus to find it and add it to the little toolbar at the bottom of the screen. I like seeing that feedback and having never driven a hybrid or EV before, and I'm certain new buyers are completely missing out on it if they don't know to look for it. Have you guys had any experience with manufacturers who don't include that hybrid transmission information screen by default? I am surprised that my Jeep has a scheduling mechanism built into the Uconnect system, but my coworker's 2023 Volvo XC60 Recharge doesn't have scheduling built in. He's a little miffed about that, especially since his newly installed home charger also doesn't have scheduling. Finally, I'd like to share my thoughts on trying to use public chargers around a suburban metro area. Sam, Robbie, and Nicole are right. The charging network in this country is pretty terrible right now, even in a big metro area like Atlanta. I'd say there's a 50-50 chance that a J1772 charger is going to work. I haven't seen many Tesla destination chargers, so the local J1772s get picked off by Tesla owners more often than not. My best luck has been with charge point stations. The same one that I mentioned is at one of my satellite offices. My second favorite has been the SEMA Connect chargers, where you enter the code from the charger to get it started. I found one that only charges for parking near my office, and it's been nice to have that as a backup. If you look in office parking lots, you can usually find on the weekends free charging because, I'll be honest, the Tesla owners have gone home. I would recommend watching out when you sign up for apps. Don't sign up for all of them at once, which is what I did. Your credit card or Apple Pay will get charged to fill up the charging account, and you'll end up with a bunch of $10 or $20 chargers that you might not use, especially if a particular network isn't located near you. The last thing I'd give you a bit of advice for if you're a first-time EV buyer, be careful of restricted stations on PlugShare or stations that should be marked as restricted. I tried to test an open corporate parking lot charger at night when I first got the Jeep, and I didn't have that level 1 charger, and a security guard yelled me off the lot via the PA. Oops.
Oh, geez.
So to summarize, I just want to thank you guys for what you're doing on this podcast and just really appreciate the responses that you're giving to listeners like me who are trying to get into their first PHEV or EV and taking our questions. Nicole's recommendation for the Jeep Wrangler 4xe was spot on, even if we bought it for different reasons. She was wanting to do trail riding in silence. I may eventually get there, but I'm going to try and make use of the electric round trip to and from work as much as possible and get better gas mileage in the process. And I fully agree with you guys. The state of charging is a mess. I'm glad I only have 17 kilowatts to charge up at any given time on this Jeep. Thanks again for all your help and this fantastic show. Keep being awesome.
All right. Thank you, Michael, for sending that in. That was a lot of stuff there, and big win for Nicole.
Yay! I'm so glad you
Nicole,
like it, Michael.
You talked someone into doing something.
It's a little scary when someone gets you like, I think this is a great car. Like, oh my gosh, or they hate it. Like,
they buy it. They're like, Nicole, you ruined my life.
You ruined my whole life by recommending
my wife
that car.
left me. My children hate me.
My dog won't talk to me anymore.
My family has disowned me.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
So
This is the car recommendation.
I'm so glad you like it, and I'm glad you're enjoying it and having fun with it, and good reasons for buying it, especially with having enough space for the dogs in the back, because aerodynamics and making a sloped roof is not something that Wranglers think about. So yeah, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. So that's good.
All right. And with that, we're going to call it a show. And we will be back in a few hours with Leo Laporte on This Week in Tech. So make sure you check that one out. I will add a link to that in the feed later on. If you're around on Sunday afternoon, or if you're not a Twit listener, make sure you check that one out, because the three of us will all be on together with Leo this afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time.
Double podcast day.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.